I'm so excited to be here in Miami with Lawrence Bender at the Jewish National Fund USA Global Conference for Israel at the Diplomat Hotel. Lawrence Bender is a renowned film producer. He has taken home 9 Academy Award wins. He's been nominated for 36 Academy Awards. He is the producer of Reservoir Dogs, the producer of Pulp Fiction, of Good Will Hunting, and also now the producer of the recently released Red Alert 4-part docuseries based on the events of October the 7th that has recently been picked up by Paramount Plus, and it is such an honor to be here with you today.
Thank you so much.
I was very honored also to be one of the invitees to your initial launch, the screening at the Paramount studio lot, which was super cool. I've never done that before.
Nice.
And I saw the first episode, and to be honest, I felt traumatized because it is so realistic. And I wanted to really start off with a quote that I read that you said, everybody has to come see this film because then they will understand the truth.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that, Lawrence?
Here we are today, and whether you're on the right or the left, it doesn't matter. Something got us here, right? And when I decided I wanted to go do something, it was already months after October 7th. And the very people who were attacked, the very people who were traumatized, the very people who had loved ones murdered, the world was going against them. Instead of, these are people who need love, the people who need to be held and nurtured and say, what can we do to help? But it was the opposite. And so I felt like I needed to do something, first of all. And I felt like the best thing I can do, because this is what I do at the TV shows and movies, is to do something that shows the world what actually happened. Now, you could debate if you like what happened afterwards, but something actually happened. This terrorist organization invaded Israel and murdered and savagely, brutally, murdered people, and that's what kicked this whole thing off. And I felt like if I could bring people in, not as a documentary, which I love documentaries, but not everyone watches documentaries. So if I can bring people into a drama and they're emotionally moved and they'll create conversation, and that will start the understanding of, okay, that's the truth. Maybe we can have a different conversation.
Well, I was definitely moved. I wanted to know really what the process was, because to me it's just astounding. Within 2 years of the attack itself, you've managed to produce a series, a 4-part docuseries, raise the funds for it, film it in Israel while the conflict is still going on. Is that the normal course of filming, under a year? How long did it take you to film? How did that process happen? And what was it like actually filming when, I remember you said at the screening, you could hear the bombing in the background in Gaza while the cameras were rolling?
Yes. But you mentioned the screening. I have to say one thing. That screening you came to was the first time I've ever seen it on the big screen.
Wow.
It was from the moment that David Ellison and Cindy Holland decided they wanted to buy it. And then they said, and we made this deal, this quick deal. And then they said they wanted to release it on October 7th, all 4 episodes. We had shown them pretty much final picture lock, but it was rough music, rough sound mix, rough visual effects. Nothing was finished. And that was like 2 weeks before that screening. So the team in Israel, my amazing producing partners in Israel, were working around triple shifts. I was like working all day here. And then at 11 o'clock in LA is 9 o'clock in Israel. I start my shift in Israel from LA. So I was working around the clock for like 10 days. So literally it was the first time I saw the whole thing on the screen with an audience. And I have to say, watching it with an audience, because I'd never done that before, I was nervous, but it's just an extraordinary feeling, because I really felt like we did what we accomplished. And I felt like it really was good. And I feel like we really, it was tough, but we really moved people. So I just wanted to say that. Now, when it comes to filming, creating something this quickly, it's tough.
And in a war zone, and in Israel, yeah.
So I'll tell you a story about shooting in the Gaza envelope during the war still going on. I'll give you an example. We were filming a scene where Batsheva Yolami, who is a real person in life, and Ratzon Sell is playing her, and her and her little girl and her little baby are running from the Hamas. They're running from the war, and they're like exhausted and it's brutally hot. And they have a moment under a tree, and while we're filming the scene, we're like 2 kilometers, less than a mile from Gaza, and you hear the and you hear the bombs going off, and it's just like a really eerie feeling because the scene is them running from the war, and yet you heard the war. So it's kind of weird, like art imitating life, imitating art. It was just this really strange and eerie feeling. And every once in a while, we all look at each other and go, that's the war. Now, we didn't feel like we were going to be attacked. The good news was that at this point, the war had gone on for a while. So we felt like, okay, Israel is now, has, I wouldn't call it the upper hand, but Hamas was not in Israel anymore. But every once in a while, Hamas did get a missile into the Gaza envelope area. And
you had red alerts while filming?
We had red alerts. Well, we didn't have red alerts while we were filming, luckily. Because from the moment the alert goes off, we have 15 seconds. But we did have to carry these concrete, safe
bomb shelters,
mamads is the way they call them in Israel. So it's very expensive. We had to carry these, and you have to be like in an area where you could jump into one of these things, a whole crew, if a missile comes over. And they came over like once a week. It just happened to be that we never had to. Now, when I was in Israel, I went through plenty of alerts. So that's one odd thing about filming in the Gaza envelope when there's a war going on. What's interesting, though, is as an American Jew, but still an American, going to Israel for the first time after October 7th, my first morning there, I got there on a Thursday night. My first morning, I'm at a meeting on the 8th floor, and you hear, and a group of people, and I'm like, what's that? And they start apologizing to me. They say, I'm so sorry, that's a missile alert. I'm like, okay. And they said, don't worry, it's the Houthis. It takes 8 minutes to get here, and the Iron Dome is going to take care of it. But we have to go into the bomb shelter. So they all pick up their Danish and their coffee, and we all mosey along into the bomb shelter. And I take out my phone and start videotaping because it's like funny, but not funny. And when we came back and sat down, and we go back to the meeting like nothing happened. But then they stop. They go, "Oh, how was that for you?" And I honestly, my emotions started like bubbling up. I didn't realize that it was an emotional moment. Everyone's still joking around, but I almost like burst out in tears. And it was like it was embarrassing. I didn't want to do that. And they said, "It's okay. That's what should be a normal reaction. We're so used to this now that it doesn't affect us anymore."
I'm so happy that you said that. The last trip, I just came back from Israel about 2 months ago, and I was in Gaza with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and I came back. I did some filming for that, and I came back, and the minute I came back to the Sheraton Hotel, there was a red alert, and I was along the beach area, and everyone from the beach ran into a bomb shelter, soaking wet, dripping, talking very casual. And then as soon as the red alert siren stopped, started singing. And I had the same reaction that you did. I started crying because it was traumatizing for me. I didn't grow up with this. And the sad truth is that the war and the trauma has been normalized. And I wanted to shake everyone, say, this is not normal. This is not how you have to live. I
have a friend, by the way, just to say really quickly, they live in northern Tel Aviv. They don't get as many alerts. But still, even with the few alerts that they got, their 8-year-old boy is afraid to take a shower. Because he's afraid if an alert goes off, he's not going to have enough time to get out, get changed, dry off, change, and get down to their mamad. And it's not great.
Well, that the mamads, the safe rooms, the shelters, they have a big role in your series because, the first episode, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but you have a family sheltering in the shelter, which were not made for terrorist attacks. They were made for rocket attacks.
Yeah.
So what do you say to people? Because I had this thought as well. Maybe it's too much too soon. Should we be fictionalizing this when there are true stories out there? On the other hand, there's a huge role that art plays in the information war, in the war to portray what is truth and what is fiction. And it's an important message, but it is fictionalized. So what do you say to people who say, we shouldn't be fictionalizing this, too much too soon? What role did the survivors play, perhaps in consulting on the set and on the stories?
Yeah, you've asked like a few really good, important things. So in terms of is it too soon, I'm just going to say flat out, no, I don't think it was too soon. Now, there are some people who felt it was too soon. It's a few, and I understand it's not like I don't understand that. But the second we got out of the, what do I got to do? And I'm going to do something, is no, we need to get this out there. We need people, we didn't really make this for the Israelis, although it was one of the biggest dramas ever in Israeli history there. And it got basically really good reception, an amazing reception. We made this for the people outside of Israel. And it wasn't soon enough as far as I'm concerned. We did it as a drama, and it's not fictionalized. The thing that I think is important is that it wasn't fiction, that we have the real stories that are real people, but we did it as a drama. So, of course, we made changes because you need to do that when you're making a TV show. But the changes are we didn't show as many dead bodies, mutilated bodies. We didn't show people getting raped. We didn't show people being burned alive. We don't want to show any of the real stuff. The real stuff is beyond imaginationally bad. We wanted to show, the most of the horror to take place off screen, and still you felt it. Of course, you see people get shot, like any normal show that you would see, that people are it's in that kind of sense. But the real horror doesn't really happen on screen, but you really feel it. And so that was important. Having the real people with us was super important. And by the way, we screened a relatively almost rough cut, almost final cut, but a rough cut for them, so we could get their comments. We had them on the set. Sometimes no, there were more terrorists. There's a scene at the Nova area where there's a police station there, and the terrorists are coming in. And now you have to remember, these are police people that are in a southern area. It's not a lot of crime. They're not SWAT team people. They're not trained to be shooting at army people coming at them, right? So they're regular, kind of ordinary, everyday people, these police officers. But as all these terrorists are coming in and invading them, Liat and one of the others said, no, there are way more terrorists than you guys have. So we're oh shit, we better fix that. And so we dressed a bunch of our crew people as terrorists and put them in the truck to show more. And I still don't think we got as many as they said there were, but we did as best we could. There's a scene that the wonderful actress Sarah Vino, who played this person named Tali, and Tali was a middle-aged woman, 3 kids, doesn't run the 100-meter in 9 seconds. She's like an everyday, ordinary person. And she took off to go save her son. And they were having a fight. In real life, they had to fight the night before this all went down. But the fight was kind of personal, and it was very personal, and we felt it didn't make sense. It wasn't right to show that personal thing, so we made the fight about something else, which is in the show. So we did make little changes throughout the thing, but the essence of the truth is full on.
At the screening that I went to, you told about the different security measures that you had to take, and you just mentioned now you had to get a bunch of crew and dress them up like terrorists. Was that not a security issue? Did you have to alert the IDF and let them know that if they see people running around looking like Hamas, maybe it's one of your film crew?
Yes, my partners, Maya Fisher and Shani Sarur and team were always in contact with the army, with the police, with the mayors, with the heads of the particular kibbutz that we were going to and so forth. And we did lots of things. I'll just give you a couple examples. Like, we were filming in a particular kibbutz, a scene that's pretty traumatizing, a scene that shows, even saying it makes me choke up, having all these terrorists invading the kibbutz. And it's horrible, right? You see all these people dressed up as Hamas. Mm-hmm. Well, it's a kibbutz. There are kids running around. And even if the kids were down there, we didn't want the kids to see that. So we blocked off a whole area with trucks so no one could see we were shooting. And we also, for a period of time, there was like 20 or 30 kids in this area. We took them and sent them all to some kind of play park or something so they could have a fun day. But if they came back in time to see us, we just didn't want to traumatize the kids. So we did even little things like that. But from a security point of view, like you mentioned, we were in a town, we were shooting a fight scene between the IDF and the Hamas. Now, they're actors. They're actors dressed as IDF and they're actors dressed as Hamas. But if you're an average, everyday person who happens to run to this, you're not going to know that because it looks real. So, and the mayor was kind of freaking out about this. So we had to do a lot. So where we were filming, every 10 meters, every 10 yards or so, we had these loudspeakers saying every like 20 minutes, "This is a movie." Everything's okay. These are actors. We literally, in Hebrew, they were saying this. We had a drone up in the sky with a tether, never came down. We had a police officer full time looking at the screen in case someone from another street happened to walk by. You know, the town is, the cemetery is full of men who died, right? And the men who were in the town all have guns. And if they randomly, like if someone's up in like an apartment building, looks down and sees the scene and sees a Hamas actor, actor who's playing Hamas, they might shoot that person. We were all dressed in these very, very light blue shirts. The entire crew, very, very light blue. And the people who were playing the Hamas, when they took them from the holding area to the set, we put them in these white, kind of like hazmat looking things. So no one would ever think for a second that these people in white walking. And as soon as they wrapped the scene, we put it back in white. So we really, we had to think of a lot of things to protect everybody in a way that you would never think of.
You had to take a lot of precautions.
Yeah.
So I've seen the triggers walking through the Nova exhibit, and I've seen survivors and their families be triggered. How could they have been on this set day after day for weeks advising on this without having flashbacks? Did they have flashbacks? How did you maintain sanity? Were there psychiatrists on set? What was the ultimate reaction of these survivors as they were advising you on how to reenact a murder less than 2 years in the past?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. And yes, it was, first of all, me and one of my partners, Jordana Rubin, we're the only non-Israelis there. Even the crew, the crew who went, our citizens, had triggers. Like, we shot in Re'im, where the Nova area is in that area, and on that kibbutz, the Key Grip brother ran that kibbutz. He was safe. He survived, but he was, when the Hamas were attacking that kibbutz, he survived that. So every person on our set had a moment of being triggered, just as a crew member. So the survivors and the people and the heroes who came to the set, it was very emotional. There's no question about it. And I have many, many moments of spending time. We're filming. We have to make our day. We have to get our shots. We have to do all those kind of things. At the same time, there are people visiting. Sometimes they visited, sometimes they came and we wanted them there to help. But a lot of times they're just visiting and observing, and it was really hard. So, as an example, this gentleman who was a widow of a woman named Yulia. So Yulia was the best friend of Liat. Liat is a character in our movie, played by Ratam Abuav. And Liat is a wonderful woman who I met when I went out to visit in the South. Yulia was her best friend, and they're both police officers. People don't realize that not only did a lot of young people die, but a lot of police officers died. And we were telling a story about these particular police officers. And so Liat was talking, and I could see the trauma still pouring out of her skin as she's talking, and And so I asked her, how do you take care of yourself? It's a year and a half already. Like, what do you do on a daily basis to help yourself? And I said, do you ever do EMDR? It's a trauma therapy. And she said, yeah, actually, about 6 months after October 7th, I started doing EMDR. And I always blame myself because I thought Yulia was behind me. And I always blame myself for leaving her back behind. And then I realized after doing EMDR, she was ahead of me. And I didn't have to blame myself for her death. Mm-hmm. And it was just this, beautifully difficult moment. Then she took me to see her memorial and so forth. So Liat was on the set, and Liat and the widower, they're best friends because one's the husband and one was the best friend. So he came to the set, and he dark glasses, and I welcomed him, and I said, "Can I get you some water? Here's the monitor. Make yourself at home." He didn't say a word to me. He didn't smile. He wasn't socially pleasant. You could see that he was already just showing up was difficult for him. And as the day went on, you could see he was having moments. I checked in with him. But by the end of the day, I saw him leaving, and he looked over and he waved at me and he smiled and he said, "Come here." It was, "Thank you so much." And he said, "Let's take a picture." And it was like a moment where you felt like it was a day of therapy. Like, he went through trigger moments in a safe place, and like a little layer of the onion was peeled, like a little layer of a lot, right? And that's kind of how it went. On the other side, there was a woman, a redheaded woman, police officer, who is a superhero. So in Hollywood, we get it wrong sometimes. We make our superheroes these beautiful men, women, like they can run, they're built like, with the arms and so forth, and the long legs. But she was not that. She's beautiful in a different way. And she saved like 100 people. And this actress Moran, her niece, who is vacationing in Greece, says to Moran, she goes, if a police officer, a woman with red hair comes, she's the one who saved my life. You gotta like say hello to her. And so they FaceTimed, and this young lady says to her name is Bot, says to Bot, "You're the one who saved my life. You saved my life. I was hiding by your feet while you were shooting at the terrorists." And Bot, again, wonderful lady, and you could just feel like she was happy that she saved this person's life, but there's so much sadness in her that the happiness kind of broke through for a moment. And we asked her, "Do you remember the people that you saved?" And she said, "I remember the people I didn't save." And this is a woman, RPG hit like very close. She went flying through the air, hit the ground. She had to have facial reconstruction. I mean, this woman was a flat out hero. And so we spent a lot of time with her, just taking it in and wanting, and you felt like, even though she was very reserved, you felt like she wanted to talk. And later, just a couple of days ago at the Creative Coalition, the Creative Community for Peace, I ran into someone and said, "Oh, I was talking to Bot in Israel. she said, does she know me? I'm like, she remembers me. And I'm like, wow, I was just blown away. And what I realized, now I'm a little bit older now, so I understand this, but a lot of people don't understand that. If someone is in pain, they really want to be loved. They want people to approach them. They want to be engaged with. And a lot of times we don't get that. If someone, has a family member that dies, you tend to like, oh, I don't want to call them. I don't want to, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to, they probably want to be alone. And it's the opposite. People need love. So I know that, right? And I purposely spent a lot of time with people because I wanted to engage with them. And one woman said to somebody that came over to me, said, there's a woman, she had her daughter was murdered, right, at the Nova. And I was saying to this woman, how do you deal with that? How do you get over that? What does your rabbi say to you? And we had a really long conversation. And this is my point. This woman, she said that to someone. That person came over to me later in the day. He said, this woman said to me that Hollywood producer, isn't who I am, just this Hollywood producer guy, came all the way from California and sat with me for an hour and just wanted to be with me. And you just understood that doesn't happen a lot. And the very people, like I felt isolated after October 7th and alone and angry and upset. These are people who had their loved ones murdered and are isolated. The world's against them. And instead of having love, they have this terrible energy coming at them. And that's what made me feel like I really need to be amplify their voice and to tell their stories. It really gave me a lot of drive.
While you were talking, I was just writing down how really what we have here is the story with the ultimate polar opposites, right? You have the victimization, the murder, and then stories of heroism. You have good versus evil. You have love, you have hate, you have really, really sad, but then there's these comedic moments in the film and the episode. I'll never forget, we were sitting in the theater, we're glued to the screen and going through this terrorist attack, but then you so artfully put some comedy in there and people really needed it and they wanted to laugh. There's wholehearted laughing from 300 people in the audience, and then we go right again back to the horror. And it is so well done and so creative, and I want to commend you on that. But I want to talk a little bit about politics, if you don't mind, and what is going on in Hollywood right now. What reaction have you gotten as a Jewish American film producer coming out with this docuseries on October the 7th? What is the reaction of the public? What has been the reaction of the press? Has there been any pushback from the so-called pro-Palestinian, which I believe is really pro-terror movement that's now infiltrated on campuses and in the media, and from other Hollywood actors and producers? You see, what I find most appalling is the red hand pin, because that is literally advertising support for the lynching of Jews. The hand is red because it's full of blood. The equivalent would be if I showed up at a screening wearing a noose around my neck to support hanging of black people. It is that outrageous. And yet it's being used as this cool virtue signaling symbol in Hollywood. What is your take on what's going on, and maybe some advice to the activists and people that we're working with on how to push back against this?
Wow. Well, you're asking the question of the day. That's for sure. And I would say a couple things in terms of Hollywood. Well, first of all, I will say flat out that there's some anti-Semitism built into Hollywood. There's some anti-Semitism built into my academy that I've seen. I could say firsthand, I've seen it. I try to correct it. And we could talk about that. But there's a large feeling to me also of ignorance. because there's this letter that was signed by now 4,000 or 5,000 people that are Hollywood people, and it's against the filmmakers and the companies that help the filmmakers, and to boycott them.
Targeting your docuseries specifically.
Not targeting mine, but I mean, yes, in a sense, targeting mine, because targeting anything coming out of Israel, basically.
Right.
Mine comes out of Israel. So theoretically, mine's a target. They're targeting any Israeli filmmakers or companies that any Israeli should be boycotted, period. And that's like, okay, so I flip it. Let's flip it really easily. It's an easy flip. So we don't like the regime of Iran. In the year of 2025, up to now, I think the number, I could be wrong, but I think the number was like they murdered like 1,200 people, innocent people. Last year, they brutally killed this young lady because she was wearing her hijab wrong. We don't boycott their filmmakers, right? We don't like their regime, but we don't boycott their filmmakers. We don't boycott their companies that make their films. In fact, we give them Academy Awards. So why are you don't like the government? Okay, you don't have to like the government, but why are you boycotting the filmmakers? And what's really ironic is that, and this is not the reason why you shouldn't boycott filmmakers, but it's ironic that the very movie that the Israeli Academy Awards gave as the best picture was a Jewish Israeli made a movie about a little kid in Ramallah, right? A Palestinian Ramallah kid, which is very sympathetic to that. It's like they're on the same team practically. And so what are they doing? It makes no sense. So there's just a lot of ignorance. There is definitely anti-Semitism in it. And okay, so what do you do? I've made some mistakes, right? My mistakes are battling it on Instagram. Like I had a DM back and forth with a guy I know, and we got into it, and it started out pretty okay, but it escalates really fast, right? And so it's like the idea of winning the battle on social media is like a zero. There's like a zero-sum game, right? So I don't know. I feel like it's hard, but it requires like hand-to-hand combat. It requires one-on-one. It requires really being able to listen. If you can find some, now there are crazy people that there's no talking to. I went to the encampments at UCLA. I stood on the front line for a little period of time because it's really scary, and I'm not like this big fighter guy, but I wanted to see what it was like. So I stood on the front line watching these pro-Palestinian people screaming at me at the top of their lungs and saying all kinds of curse words. And and then I guess enough for me. I'm moving away. So, you're clearly not going to engage in that. But I think like A, through art, and B, through, conversation, reaching out to what you feel is the enemy at this point. Listen, I'd go so far as saying about a year ago, someone was going on about AOC. And I said, I want to speak to AOC. I want to go sit down with her and talk to her. Mm-hmm. And it never happened. But I'm just saying, the people who, are so clearly doing things that feel like they're against us, against Israel, are the very people that I feel like we need to engage. They're the very people I want to see, I want to show this show. So honestly, one of the things I feel people can do is get people to see the show, because it's almost like a trick. It's not, but it's like almost like it's like, okay, red alert. It doesn't scream political. It's like, it's kind of like, that's a cool title, red alert. And it's a drama, and it's a good one, and you get pulled into it, and then you're reminded that it's actually the truth. And so through art, I feel like you do have the ability to move people. And the other thing is, on the news, like every day there's a news something, and it's back and forth, and whatever station you watch, there's a news cycle every X amount of minutes. And this show is going to last. And 5 years from now, even, no one's going to remember what happened on this particular day on the news, but the show is going to be there. And this is something that people can watch and be reminded of what the truth is.
Well, I think exploring these topics through art and comedy is very important. I mean, I myself obviously am on these frontline battles where I'm trying to convince people of the facts and the truth, and feelings don't care about facts. And you said yourself, it's not about the facts, it's about emotion. And I think you have really accomplished what you set out to do, is make people feel what happened. And because when they are led with emotions, perhaps they will come closer to the truth. I also feel that we are being stifled by our emotions. And the one emotion that I see in my conversations with people in Hollywood is a great deal of fear. Mm-hmm. Fear of being boycotted, fear of being not booked. 100%. We've worked with the movement with several actors. I had conversations even with Michael Rappaport, who was very open about how he's just not being booked because of his stance and his speaking the truth and being a proud Jewish advocate. Mm-hmm. So what are your words to convince people that there is nothing to be afraid of? I'm sure people said to you, no, Lawrence, don't go there. You're going to be typecast. The BDS movement is going to come against you. You're a producer of these amazing movies. Why risk your career? But you said, fuck it, no, of course I'm going to do this. Was that, a process of thinking about it and weighing the pros and cons? Was it something immediate? And what do you say to these Hollywood people that we're trying to activate, how to get over their fear and do what is right and courageous? I'll just say that in my career, what I've witnessed so much, when we represent our plaintiffs, we bring lawsuits on behalf of students and people who are employed, who are discriminated against. What I tell them is that if you do nothing, it's going to get worse. And I've seen it. If students allow the pro-Hamas agitators and the mob to physically and verbally assault and harass them, it's just going to get worse if there are no consequences. So we've based the movement and our legal advocacy off the principle that we have to ensure consequences for anti-Jewish discrimination. What is the equivalent for you?
Shit. Amen to you. Well, first of all, I just don't consider these things. I just do it. And just like when we all watched George Floyd being murdered, and I was protesting with my brothers and sisters out there, and I made 3 movies that year that were all Black Lives Matter related. One won the Academy Award, one I won a Peabody Award for, and one was like a big hit on Netflix. I feel like I walked the walk, right? But when October 7th happened, I didn't even think about the results of some problem like this. It just didn't even occur to me. I was just going to go do it. However, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm not a young upstarter. I've been making movies and TV shows for almost 40 years now. So I don't really care if people don't just say something to me. Of course I care, of course. But it's not a consideration for me. But it's harder if you're, first of all, I'm not in front of the camera, right? And I don't represent people who are like pro-Palestinians, whatever. And I'm really an independent producer. And so it's easier for me. And I feel like it would not be honest to say, hey, just throw it all away and just forget it. I had I won't say who, but a black fellow and his wife, and they saw I was wearing, a hostage thing, and they said, oh man, I love that. He's very, he's a real ally, we call him, right? And I said, hey man, great, you want to wear it? I'll give it to you. And him and his wife is Jewish. It's like, it's like, man, I want to, but I'm gonna just be killed. It's gonna be really hard. And I get felt for him. I love this guy. It's not like, I'm like, F you. I feel for him because, he is an ally, but and so what do you do? It's like, I'm not really sure what the answer is as an actor, as a, but I feel like you can't do nothing. You know what I mean? I just feel like you just can't do nothing. You have to, just like I've made movies about Matthew Shepard, a young gay man who was beat up and left to die on the fence. We got a GLAAD nomination for that. I've made 3 TV shows with women showrunners. I made a documentary about these incredible guys called the Chicano Squad. I just work with people from across the spectrum, not because you're supposed to, because that's what I love, that's how I see life. And it's time that all those people, right, need to realize what the hell's going on in this world and need to support us. And I think that's what needs to happen. I think we as Jews need to not be worried about saying that we need help and love and support. I don't think we should be scared of that. I think we should say to the people that we know that are not Jews, say, I need your help. We're used to helping you. Now it's time. And Van Jones says it's really cool. I love Van Jones. Van Jones says, blacks and Jews have been like this throughout the century. I mean, Jews helped start the NAACP. Mm-hmm. Jews were down in Mississippi, helping. Jews financed the lawyers. I mean, the Jews helped black folk for a long, long time.
What's that?
But black folk have never had to help the Jews. I mean, I'm just kind of trying to imitate Van, mm-hmm. right? And we need to do that, right?
And are they? I mean, have you, all of the people that you work with and, lobbied for the Me Too and Black Lives Matter and Jews marched for them, all those people in your community, have you shown them the series? Have you asked them for help? And do we have real allyship?
Yeah, not enough. Not enough. And I had... getting people to come to screenings is always hard, so I'm not going to. And I have one dear friend who did come and loved it, but not enough. No, the answer is, I hate to say, not enough. Yeah. We need much more. Part of that's on me. Honestly, a part of that's on me because I have a lot of friends of all different races, nationalities, and so forth. But my focus right now is getting the show out and getting them to see it, getting everyone to see it. So I still have work to do.
So how do we see it? If you could tell our audience, if you want to watch the 4-part docuseries Red Alert, which I highly, highly recommend, how do we get to see that, Lawrence?
Get Paramount Plus. You got to support Paramount. David Ellison, he's like a god amongst men. He bought Paramount. Him and Cindy Holland saw the show. They made a deal in 2 days. He's supporting this, and we need to support Paramount. We need to support Paramount because they came out and said this boycott against Israel is ridiculous. That we support artists of all types, including Jewish people. We need to support Paramount, and they're the ones who are. That's where you can find our show, all 4 episodes.
Thank God for Paramount.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to make more episodes beyond these 4?
I have lots of plans to make other shows and movies about Jewish people and about Israel. I'm not sure. This took everything out of us to make this show. I'm not sure we're going to do another 4 episodes, but 100% I have a new chapter in my life which is very focused on Jewish and Israeli content.
Well, thank you for that. I'm very grateful to you and grateful for our friendship.
Thank you.
And for everything that you've done. So I was wondering if you could just say something that we can use for the movement to the